All right, so today is our discussion of, today we're going to discuss Holy Basil. Um, these product presentations are meant to inform you so that you can make wise decisions on your purchases and your choices and how you administer herbs to yourself and your family and friends. And one of my long time favorite herbs, because I've been growing this herb annually for I think 16 or 17 years now. Holy Basil, also known as Tulsi, that is the Indian name. It's an herb native to India. There's some species native to Madagascar, Sri Lanka, possibly elsewhere in Southeast Asia, but is, as the name Tulsi implies, it is culturally very significant to India. The scientific name being Alsomum sanctum. There used to be two C's on that genus, and they stripped one. Same genus as basil, European basil, and sanctum, referring to its holiness. Basilicum is our conventional basil. So people often ask, is it the same thing? You know, that people just tagged on this moniker of it being holy for some reason. No, in fact, botanically, they're quite distinct, and there's very distinct chemical differences, which you can tell simply by touching and smelling or tasting Holy Basil. Holy Basil is certainly more into the medicinal realm than culinary, although there's some culinary application. I say it's predominantly medicinal, whereas our basil is medicinal, but predominantly culinary. And highly revered in India, such that you would find it in many homes. And there it is cultivated often in a pot or just outside the home in the ground as a perennial, a woody perennial. Now I've had for a few years now plants overwinter, and we just had our first freeze here locally about 4 nights ago. And so I started covering them then. All of them have made it. Even some that I have in pots that weren't covered have survived because it was just barely a freeze. But it certainly wouldn't kill them, but it could knock back the top growth, which it did on the largest ones. And I have the largest holy basil that I've ever had with all the rains that we had last summer. So yeah, normally an annual in North America, just like regular basil, but it can be perennial when you don't have deep freezes over the winter. I found that the overwintered plants are much slower to grow in the spring than the newly sprouted. And interestingly enough, even though I've been growing from the same seed stock for 16 years, I would say, maybe 17 now, it generally grows where it likes to grow. I've tried to plant it, gather the seed and put it where I'd like it to be, and then it will just germinate where it likes, and maybe in abundance. So then I will, here's the problem. I can't use my cursor when somebody, maybe that works. There you go. It will just sprout where it likes, it'll germinate where it likes, and then I'll transplant it. And it transplants really well as a young plant, quite effectively. I'll move it into the ground somewhere else or into a pot and share it with others. So that's a little bit of the logistics of holy basil cultivation. Seeds are easy to come by. I've been considering putting some for sale on our website for a while, but haven't gotten around to doing that yet. But otherwise, I know you can get seeds from strictly medicinal seeds. And in most places in the country, it somewhere between March and May, maybe even June, would be a great time to plant it. That's when we start our plantings here in mid-March, or again with the summer rains. All right, so yeah, medicinal plant, as I mentioned, predominantly medicinal. You can use it culinarily. I put I can't believe it. I've been talking all this time and muted again. I know that I removed that mute and it very frustrating. Very frustrating. Love to be away from computers right now, but here we are. Okay, sorry about that. My video was off. My video has been on the whole time and it's still on. So no surprise that things are not functioning as I would hope or as one would expect. So let's go back to the presentation. Let's see if that works. Yeah, it seemed like things were changing on their own while I was going through the presentation. Apparently that was the case. Well, maybe, no, it's probably nothing was recorded. How unfortunate. Well, at the risk of repeating myself, I haven't got into the nuts and bolts of it yet, but let's just say that Holy Basil is an easy to grow herb in North America, just as you would grow basil. There are different species. Ocimum sanctum is the scientific name for Holy Basil. Ocimum basilicum is the scientific name for European basil. Holy Basil, more medicinal, less edible, less culinary. Conventional or common basil, more culinary, less medicinal in terms of their qualities, in my opinion, and you would say traditional and conventional use of each. So as I state here, mostly used medicinally, and you can use it both topically and internally. I predominantly use it internally, but of course you can use it topically, as is the case with vast majority of herbs. All right. Here's a photo. So I was saying, while muted, that this is a hybrid, I believe, taking on qualities of basil as holy basil. And I call it holy basil because it has the flower color and the overall scent and flavor characteristics of holy basil. So after growing it for 16 years, 17 years now, first time I saw this was about 2 or 3 times larger than the largest plant that I've grown. I had several of them this year, thanks mostly to rain, I believe, abundant rain. But appearance-wise, it was definitely taking on some of the basil qualities. In terms of the leaves here, you can see they're more glossy, less hairy, and that's the green is more muted on the Tulsi and more glossy on the conventional basil. Just a second here. So moving forward, what I'd like to highlight are a number of things. Holy basil is a widely applicable plant. And so there's so many things we can use it for. I would say it by and large has gotten pegged as a nervous system herb, which is great. And it might be its central focus, its most potent attributes or its greatest affinity might be the best way to say it. And that's why I put it at the top of the list here. And because of that, or with that affinity, it can have further broader reaching effects into the whole system, of course. But as a, quote, calmer of the nervous system, that is true. However, people like myself can experience it as quite stimulating to the nervous system. So I avoid taking Tulsi. And if there's any contraindication for Tulsi that I'm aware of, that would be it. For those, and I can't say who those might be, it's very likely some sort of diagnostic criteria that I'm not aware of yet. But for myself, if I were to drink a tea or maybe some tincture in the late afternoon, this might propel me into late night feeling energized when I might otherwise be ready for rest. I experienced that years ago. I drank a tea. I was testing out some recipes, and I made a tea with some stems of the Holy Basil. And about 7 or 8 hours later, after going through boxes of things and cleaning my house, I realized, what the heck was that? What did I just do all that for? And then reflected on drinking the Holy Basil, and I've tested it since. And that's often the case for me, but there are many people who swear by Holy Basil for helping them fall asleep at night. And I think that has a little more to do with an anxious mind. If someone doesn't necessarily have difficulty falling asleep, due to the mind state, but more of like a physical restlessness, then maybe Holy Basil is going to be more stimulating. But that aside, taking during the day, it can have a modulatory effect on the nervous system in a beneficial sense, where it can either alleviate anxiety and tension, but also tonify the nervous system, such as to improve something like depression, or as we get into later, brain fog. Now, is that just a tonification of the nervous system? Well, it's probably more complex than I can articulate, but tonification would mean to say that there's a tightening of function, there's a tightening of the structure, and therefore a tightening of the function. There could be some anti-inflammatory aspects as well when tonification of the nervous system is implicated by way of enhanced cognitive function, meaning that you feel depressed in your cognitive function, inability to articulate thoughts, and or hopefully my internet connection is remaining stable for this, unable to articulate thoughts well, or thoughts muddled. Brain fog is very, very common right now for multiple reasons. And I think Holy Basil addresses at least one, maybe two key aspects of that, at least. And one of those would be to tonify the nervous system. And on that thought, I'm going to jump around on this list a bit, going down to the bottom. Detoxification. So protects and reduces cell damage due to environmental toxins and low oxygen conditions. So that could tie into what I was just saying about the brain fog, in which, let me see if I can admit this person without problem. Okay, great. Detoxification. In the mild detoxifying effects of Holy Basil, it can reduce excitatory effects within the bloodstream, which can negatively contribute to brain fog. And I think that's a very common issue right now due to A, environmental toxins, or B, medical procedures received. Let's just leave it at that. And on the third leg of that,
You're muted, John.
that is not my doing. So somehow, I don't know what's going on, but Zoom is somehow muting me. Am I being censored? Yeah, I can't think of what's happening other than maybe when I'm admitting someone, I'm somehow unknowingly muting myself, but that, yeah. My apologies, it's an ongoing struggle, but here we go. So, goodness, I don't have any idea how much of that you missed, but I'm talking about the ability of Holy Basil to address brain fog in three distinct ways. A, tonifying the nervous system. B, detoxifying the blood, but broader than that, let's just call it detoxifying the whole being. And then immune regulation in the way that immunologically people are under a certain level of autoimmune attack that has spillover effect onto the nervous system and certainly onto the blood. So it's a bogging down of the blood. I've been relating to this in the past. I think the CV3 formula, red root specifically, to some extent Danshan and Bakel skullcap, been relating all of these to that issue. And Holy Basil very genially addresses three legs of this stool. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep moving along because it started late and I keep having to restart. Research indicates that research that's been around for a while, Holy Basil does protect cardiovascular health as well. So rapid heart rate and high blood pressure, not that it will cause low blood pressure if you use it, but if you have high blood pressure, it works in a mild, it's like a mild, very mild blood thinner. And that way it is antithrombotic, but then reduces the pressure needed, reduces the force needed to move the blood through the system, thereby reducing pressure. And I think the longer that persists, then the heart rate may increase. And this, I think, ties in a great deal to what I was just saying about the second two aspects of that stool, in which the detoxification efforts of Holy Basil help improve the quality of the blood overall, as well as the immunomodulatory effects. So very, very well-rounded plant for a modern, at least urban individual. The antioxidant effects tie right into there as well. Improving stamina and reducing muscle fatigue, two of the things that Holy Basil is also really well known for. That's one of the reasons why I do the Holy Basil Oxymel on a daily basis, because it covers a lot of bases, but also as like a first thing in the morning, kind of perk me up and get my mind and then eventually my body ready to move into the day. And there are some studies show a variety of effects I've been muted again. Wow, super frustrating. Sorry about this, everyone. I don't know if this has something to do with my poor connection, even though I got full Wi-Fi signal, or the struggles I've been going through with this upgrade to the latest Mac OS. This is my first Zoom session since going through this escapade over the last 48 hours. So my apologies. I certainly don't mean to waste your time, and hopefully the recording will be salvageable. All right, moving forward. Appreciate your patience, everyone. All right, so now I'm going to look at the products that we have, or at least three of them. I didn't get a chance to include the fourth one, which is our brain power tincture, but Holy Basil, I call it Tulsi Holy Basil because a lot of people would be searching for Tulsi. There's a lot more marketing behind Tulsi, I would say, a little bit less than Holy Basil. So people are more likely to find it or be aware of it through that name, through marketing channels, not our marketing, but larger companies who market the product out of India. Thus, that's the name on our site. Warm and dry are the qualities, so it counteracts cold and damp in general. It's relatively mild, so it's not one to be really concerned about in a warm and dry environment, for example. And its quality is pungent, slightly sweet, astringent. The sweetness indicates that it has a nice building, nutritive aspect, and the pungent is not bitter, but pungent has a clove-like flavor and scent. And that's from the methyl eugenol. Methyl eugenol is also found in yerba mansa. And the eugenol refers to compound derived from clove, or originally identified in clove. Eugenia was a previous genus for clove. Now it's Syzygium. And so the clove scent is present to some extent, depending on your olfactory orientation. I can smell it and taste it quite readily, others less so. But clove is present there. And that might have something to do with part of the pain relieving properties of Holy Basil, either topically, say orally, or also what I haven't mentioned in any of the footnotes here, or the notes here, I should say, is traditional use for arthritis. That's one of the applications for Holy Basil, right? Or pain in the chest. So recapping somewhat on what we just looked at and then expanding a bit, here we have properties, supports nervous system function. So it can tone nervous system. It can also relax the nervous system, kind of depending on the need. Some people, arguably most, all need a combination of both, because the immune system, the nervous system is complex. And there's a lot of external environmental signaling has complex effects on the nervous system, as well as our internal response to self that triggers a myriad of nervous system responses. So Tulsi is kind of like a warm blanket on all of that, but not a damp blanket, in that it muffles nervous system. It can actually amplify nervous system expression. That's the tonification I'm talking about, where that's beneficial. There's a wisdom to trust within the plant's effects on our nervous system. And it aids in overall immunity, a specific affinity for respiratory system. So in that regard, acute infections of respiratory system, viral and fungal. Yes, I am well aware of the long-standing yet currently reamplified questioning of germ theory, and open to exploring more of that myself. But just for an ease of articulation, that is aligning with that understanding for now. And supports cardiovascular health, as I've already mentioned. Relieves emotional intestinal stress. So that can refer to a loose stool, kind of IBD, IBS phenomenon that's related to, used to call, I guess, epigastric derangement. So nervous system in the solar plexus, based on emotional dismay, disruption of a sense of self, worry, and so forth, preoccupation with thoughts and emotions that disrupt severely the intestinal environment. So that there's other mint plants that work similarly. And Holy Basil is definitely one for, say, loose stool as a consequence of worry and emotional upset. That can be the tincture or the tea, perhaps also the oxymel. I mentioned its antifungal, antiviral properties. It's also been studied, researched as an anti-diabetic. And so one of the ways that I've advocated for use of Tulsi, even basil, could be used this way as a tea with cinnamon. You could also add cardamom, because cardamom also shows properties in this regard to help improve sensitization to insulin. In fact, I think I once made a prickly pear oxymel with prickly pear juice and Tulsi and cinnamon, combining all of their metabolic effects into one. So there's quite a varied array of All right, I'm catching it quickly now. I see that the Zoom connection keeps getting dropped, and then the window disappears, and then it brings me back muted. So sorry about that. Okay, so on to our Holy Basil honey. So this is a very simple product. We chop up fresh. My goodness, this is epic. Never had an experience like this before on Zoom. Okay, hanging in there. I was saying, Holy Basil honey is, I'm gonna try, well, next time I'll try to connect to my phone if this happens again and see if that'll make a difference. We chop up the fresh holy basil, primarily the leaves and stems, flowering tips, and then cover that in wildflower honey for length of time. And did I forget to do? Oh, you lost me already. No, where am I? Stop the share. Okay, looks like video and record button continues to blink even though we can't hear you. Well, I'm trusting that the recording is being made because I see it recording. The audio is being registered here. Mute is off, video is rolling. So I'm going to assume that something's functional here. But I appreciate your feedback and I appreciate your patience that you're not jumping ship on this rocky ride. So the Holy Basil honey. I think one of the things that inspired me to do this outside of the culinary mindset, and this was one that I used to use a lot in making breads with my daughter. We would make acorn and nut breads a couple times a week for years. And we would, since I made an abundance of this and I wasn't selling it, we were looking to use it in our baked goods, and that came out really nice. Yeah, this is bordering on insanity. So I'm going to try getting through at least this Holy Basil honey and then maybe quickly the oxymel, and then we'll wrap up. And I can only hope that the recording has been continuous. And then you'll actually hear me say some of this stuff 2 or 3 times. So the Holy Basil honey can be added culinarily. I was just saying I use it in baked goods, but what inspired me to make this outside of the culinary mindset of let's explore, my neighbor at the time was going through some stress with his family, and I had given some to him to transplant into his garden, and I told him a bit about it. And during this stressful time with his daughter going through a life transformation, and they were very concerned for her, he would go out to the garden and nibble on some of the holy basil. And he said that would just calm him right down. So I figured I could get that into the honey very well, and that'd be a way for people who didn't want the alcohol to take it as well. So anyhow, that was kind of the motivation of using the holy basil honey. Doesn't take that much. Sometimes just you put a little, put your pinky in if you like, or a tiny teaspoon, and just take a little nib, and that can help calm, relieve anxiety, perhaps boost mental clarity, relieve brain fog, maybe even give you a little bit of energy, mental energy to move through a project. It's also soothing to the mucosa, the throat, upper respiratory system. I would prefer our bee balm or wild oregano flower honey, or even osha honey when we have it available over this. They have more, you might say, anti-infective properties that might be more effective, broad spectrum for relieving a sore throat, but Holy Basil honey also can do the job. Okay, I'm going to move forward before Zoom undercuts me again. Holy Basil honey. This has been a great success in its popularity, and people really enjoy it. So I put this together from a variety of inspirations, and so we have some locally grown herbs, and then borrowing from related traditions, the shatavari, to some extent the cardamom. The orange peel and cardamom are really good as movers. They have warming, pungent, diffusive actions, which help move the effects out into the body, since Holy Basil is an herb that has broad effects throughout the body. And the oxymel, at its core as a vinegar honey preparation, is centered on the respiratory and digestive systems, very much influential on the mucous membranes of each. But then Holy Basil kind of broadens this out into the nervous system, and orange peel and cardamom are diffusive. They help move that out through the bloodstream even more. And then you've got red root in there, which is a really nice lymphatic and slow mover. You know, it helps move the slow moving energy in the body. Thought we were going to get through that one. We did not. So I think I got through almost all of that up to, there's a chat message. I'll check it out. Great. Yes. And the Holy Basil oxymel is definitely available on our website. So, okay, I'm screen sharing. Get back to the full screen on this. Yeah, and I was saying the ingredients somehow have disappeared. I don't know what happened there, but I feel like we're riding through a hurricane in the sea, and we're blinded, and we keep getting thrown off course, spun in a circle. But I'm staying focused here, and hopefully finally remember to link my phone, and that doesn't, if we don't get booted anymore, that's the signal that my router's not holding the signal. It's still telling me my internet connection is unstable. I'm guessing that still has a lot to do with broad spec. I can make other versions of it, maybe with some hawthorn or some ashwagandha, kind of influenced in slightly different directions. Perhaps that's what I will do. Maybe we'll have a Holy Basil, oxymel 2.0, 3.0, or maybe I come up with something more creative than that, but no guarantees. All right, so very, very difficult session here in terms of technologically, but I appreciate you guys being here. Hope the recordings will turn out well. Thank you for any individuals who have generously contributed donations in the past. Much appreciated. Those are places where you're welcome to send if you ever feel so inclined. Thank you very much. I thought there was one more slide, but I'm not seeing it. I think there is. Yeah, maybe patients. I went through this last time. For those of you that didn't watch or weren't present, I do quick consultations, 15 or 30-minute sessions. Those are available to get booked directly on. It's a great way to learn about a specific minute. If you have specific, 15-minute is very, very short. One specific concern, 15-minute is best. 15-minute is possible. If you have more than one concern or more than one question, I would highly recommend a 30-minute session. Most of my 30-minute sessions have been going 40 or 45 minutes. Most of my 15-minute sessions are going 20, 25 minutes. In the new year, I'm really going to have to discipline that down into the actual time frames because I'm just hit with a tsunami of responsibilities and such. So I appreciate your interest in that and respecting those time limits. So those are available. And for those who would like to go deeper, most people don't realize, but have separate wellness consultations that are not available on any website. I do those via email in terms of advertising them, I should say, and scheduling them. But those start at an hour and then go up from there. And I have packages of multiple sessions and so forth, and write out detailed protocols and so forth. So if you're interested in that, you can email me, John Slattery at deserttortoisebotanicals.com, or just go to contact on the website. That's an easy way. And then we can start that discussion there. I also have, I should mention, didn't make a slide for it, but I have just reinstated my apprenticeship program for the first time since 2016. And that's primarily in the field in person. People that would have been dreaming of such a type of education. That begins in March and goes into November. And you can find information on that on my website, johnjslattery.com. Yeah, thanks for the note about the bandwidth being low. That could be a problem with the whole operating system issue. All right. Hopefully I'll have this figured out before next week. I do plan to be back again next week, and each week for the next, I think the next 6 weeks, I'll be available till February 17th, thereabouts. So again, appreciate you guys being here, your patience and your interest. Thank you very much. And go out and enjoy some nature. Enjoy the sunshine while you have it, if you do. All right. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much. And I will send out the recording if it's available, when it's available, hopefully here shortly. Thank you. And now I've lost access to my cursor, so I'm unable